It's Season 2, Episode 5 of Founding Up's Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life, with hosts Dan Dillard, Dr. Leon Vanstone, and myself, Natalie Peyton. Joining us is Gregg Alvarez, a seasoned entrepreneur, angel investor, and all-around mentor who's here to share his journey from working well with startups to investing in emerging talent. We'll explore what it means to find your passion, balance work and life, and the vital role mentorship plays in success. We have an insightful and inspiring conversation ahead as we dive into the world of startups, mentorship, and navigating unpredictable paths of entrepreneurship. Special thanks to our Gen Z contributors this episode, including Bella, who talks about the lack of community she feels in her generation through the pervasiveness of social media, Anais, who summarizes an interview she had with a Gen Z individual by discussing the pressure we put on ourselves and how to recognize it when it's coming from ourselves and when it's coming from our work or personal lives, and Landon, who talks about the pressure to go to college. Let's hear what our guest mentor has to share.
Alrighty, welcome to Founding Up's Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life. I'm excited.
Me too.
I am always excited.
You look excited. I'm like, where's that energy? Where's that energy? We've done so much already.
Whoa!
You've done so much already. You spent your mental energy on our first meeting.
Yeah, I did, God.
Well, welcome to the show. We're excited to have Mr. Gregg Alvarez in the house.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And let's do a quick intro.
You've got to tell us what episode this is.
Oh, well, we had to do a double check. Episode 5.
It's episode 5
Season
already.
2 already.
So excited.
And we've got like another 6 already lined up, so.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie Peyton. I am an actor, comedian, and podcast person, Natalie.
And hello, everyone. I am Dr. Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Founding Up.
Look at the camera, just like, now he does it so
Ding.
professional. She's like,
I've just got a different brand. Okay, she's far more polished than I am.
and I'm Dan Dillard, co-founder of Founding Up, amongst other entrepreneurial ventures, and host of Adventures and host of Uncharted. Looking forward to doing this. Jumping in, I've known Gregg. How long have we known each other? 5, 6, 7, 8 years?
Oh, yeah. You know, COVID makes things kind of like the time. It's like, wow, that was 10 years ago, but COVID is like this 2 or 3 years. It was,
Well, we knew each other when I was working the magazine. That
Yeah.
started that in 2016.
okay. So,
So-
around
Yeah,
that
that's
time or
8 years.
shortly.
About 8 years.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible, but yeah.
Yeah, we would just do our favorite breakfast. We'd go do a breakfast over at, what was that place down?
Kirby Lane.
No, it was this other place. Anyway, it was,
That'd be good.
yeah, it was
It's
good.
great.
It was, it's called, oh man.
Is it the one connected to Mike or Matt Cisneros?
No, anyway, I'll think about it. Here in a second. I'm going to throw a name
So
out there.
anyway, yeah.
It's called Wake Up or something like that. Is this, that's this,
There's snooze.
snooze.
The opposite of wake up.
That is so funny.
That is what it was. I was like, it
That's
had something to do.
hilarious.
Like these brains are working
Yeah.
together.
That's
Like,
so great.
Oh my
Wake
God.
up,
It's
no,
like
snooze.
wake up. That's how I wake
It's
up.
funny.
by
I
snoozing.
literally just had breakfast there last week with
That's a good job.
I was
uh,
there yesterday.
Ned, you know Ned Lavelle. He's the founder of one of the founding partners of Pine House Pizza.
yeah, we
and,
just
Oh.
met
and
with him.
Craft Brewery.
Yeah.
He's actually
have
coming
a-
on this in
yeah,
like a
he's
week.
coming
or
He's
two.
great. Yeah, he's great. He's been a friend of mine since, well, our kids are the same age, so probably the last 6 years or so. So we were having a catch up and business breakfast. I haven't seen him since.
you said Ned Lavelle, and I was like, I know who you're talking about. I'm
Yeah.
going to let you finish out the description because, there could be more than one, but yeah.
Yeah,
Great
so,
story.
anyway, he's
Uh,
awesome.
So, Greg, let's just jump into, so you've seen some clips of the show, or hopefully you've seen a few of the show.
Sure.
He's like, yes. First part of it, we like to just kind of talk about what you're doing now,
Yeah.
and then is it what you thought you were going to do when you were in high school,
Right.
and then take us back from high school into decisions and
Okay.
that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
currently,
So I've spent the last probably 12 years doing advising companies, consulting, angel investing, things of that nature, and most recently I've invested in a franchise of a company called Proforma.
Mm-hmm.
And Proforma is one of the largest companies of what it does. And so everything from print to promotional items, apparel, loyalty programs, things of that nature. And I was interested in it because my background is in sales and marketing, helping scale companies. And so, the marketing aspect, why do you need any of this stuff? Well, it's about employee retention, and it's about customer retention and aligning sales and marketing with business goals. And so, really good company, excited to be investing in that and helping companies do what I've been helping them do, but with other services and products.
You mentioned angel investing, and just for our audience, because a lot of our audience is Gen Z, you want to talk a little bit about what angels do versus a VC or versus other?
Yeah. So my experience was just very, very early stage companies, small personal checks to help companies and people, founders get off the ground who have a good idea, probably in most cases, very little traction, as you guys know, but somebody that's got a good idea to help an industry or that's purpose driven, and they have the experience or the acumen that to pull it off.
Yeah.
And so
you're betting on the team.
Yeah. And giving and helping them with some initial capital, and then, but also, consulting and advisement. And so that's been my track record, is typically doing that. And then, but I'll stay on as an advisor. And in some cases that turns into a role within the company.
Right.
Like, hey, will you be our founding EVP of sales, or sales and marketing, or founding, CEO, something like that. And so just helping companies from that perspective.
Awesome. Well, I know that there's no need to explain everything, as we now have GPT. You can just look it up. But angels are different than VCs. VCs is someone that is company's a lot more established, and they've got some clients, and now they're going to put some serious money behind it. But before that, you have your friends and family that just kind of help you get started. Then your angels that come in. So that's great. And you mentioned this at breakfast last time. It's like you did a lot more younger in life because you had that risk, like you wanted to, because there's more risk in doing angel than there is like the VC rounds and stuff like that. But
Yeah, a lot of risk. I have not historically been risk averse, but as you get older, well, I spoke to Proforma. It's like, well, why Proforma? That's not very risky. It is investing in a new company, but it's an established company who is doing things that maybe not so much innovation that they're providing is in the way that they're doing business.
Right.
Having come out of COVID, it's like, what is less
risk,
less risky, and that is something that can be needed
right?
in any time. So like, I asked the folks at the company, I'm like, what did you do during COVID? They're like, we provided a lot of PPE, apparel and stuff that people needed. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, which is like a lot different than the last startup, which was a 3D VR real estate platform. It's like is out there,
Right.
So yeah.
Prop tech.
Some stuff's out there. All right, so let's start. Let's chat about. I mean, you're doing that now.
Yep.
Not what you envisioned when you were in high school. What did you want to be when you were in high school?
I didn't know. And just to be transparent, like it was a challenging time in my life at home. I went to high school in Austin, Texas, at Westlake, and so I just wasn't sure. It was like, you got through, right? From my perspective. What was interesting is I went to a really a good high school. It was considered the community was well off, and so there was a high degree of expectation that people would come out and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I didn't know what I was going to do.
You were in the Harvard of high schools.
Well, yeah, back then I didn't know what I was going to do, but success was assumed to some degree.
Right.
And so, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and consequently, when after high school, I was like, well, I'll go to the community college and I'll get a job at the same time and kind of figure things out. So I did. I went to community college here, but I also started working at Motorola, which was a company that used to be here in Austin. And Motorola had a program where I was at Motorola for a while, where you could take a military leave of absence and go into the military and finish your schooling, and then come back out and come back to Motorola with tenure and
Wow.
a position. So I was like, well, given that I'm not sure, this will be a good path for me. And for some reason, and I don't know why, I felt very patriotic, like as a kid. I think part of it was probably my first memories of were I think it was the '76 Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like Sugar Ray Leonard and all these great athletes, and America. There was this very just strong feeling of American. So consequently, I just felt very patriotic. So somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, I wanted to serve my country. But I also admit, I was scared. I was like,
Sure.
I grew up in Austin, Texas, and went to Westlake, and my life's been like this, very safe, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go off into the military, but I did, and it was amazing. It was a great experience. I got education. I got to travel the world. Interestingly enough, this doesn't happen very often, but I think 6 months after I went in, and I was in my second school. The first Gulf War broke out, Desert Storm. I was like, oh my gosh, what are the odds?
Yeah.
So I'm like, am I going to have to go fight? But luckily, the work that I was doing, it wasn't useful in that war. So they're just like, you just stay in school. We got but I did that for 6 years.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Really, somebody asked me about it the other day. I was like, would you do it again it was a parent. I was like, would you do it again? And what if your kid said that they wanted to do it? And I said, I would absolutely do it again. And I would support my children in whatever they did if they had a passion for it. And I said that they said, what did you get from it? And I said, I learned to work with a very diverse group of people. When you're on a ship in the war, in the middle of the ocean with 600 other boys, we didn't know we were boys, but young men, and you've got the spectrum of life experience. Very, very, some of the smartest people you'll ever meet, to some people that weren't quite as educated, and then all walks of life, ethnicities, everything. And you're there to do a job and a common goal to whether it's something small like, hey, we've got to load groceries on the ship from the helicopter, or hey, we're about to go enforce embargoes in the Gulf, and you've got to find a way to work together, and so being able to work with all walks of life is very helpful. And then also just becoming more worldly. Like, I grew up in a very sheltered life, this community, this way of thinking, this is how life is.
Right.
These are your spiritual beliefs. It was very, my bubble was small. And then getting to go to the Middle East and Far East and Europe and Central America and South America and all over, and see that, wow, life is so much bigger, and there's so many other ways to think and accomplish things. And I would have never had that life perspective had I not done that. So anyway, and then the other thing I figured out was, going in for engineering. I was like, I am not cut out to be an engineer. So when I got out,
Me neither.
I was like, right. I'm like, what am I? I said, okay, I don't want to go back to Motorola. I don't want to do that.
Even that. You're like, I have this job waiting for me. I don't even want to do that anymore.
That's right. I just, it's like, this is not me.
Right.
So interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys remember, but there used to be in Austin, there was a Palmer Event Center down in Buckle Springs.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be Palmer Auditorium. I'm old enough to remember where my first concert when I was 7 years old was Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings
Nice.
in there. Well, all these years later, it's Palmer Event Center, but back when it was Palmer Auditorium, they had a job fair, and I'm like, and I'm in my mid-20s, I'm like, I wasn't married, I was like, I'll go check it out, and that was where I found my first internet company, and it was a company called citysearch.com, and it was a local city guide. It was a part of a think tank out of Silicon Valley, where they were going to use the internet commercially so that people could find goods and services and
it is
entertainment.
worth pointing out to our Gen Z listeners that this had not been done before, correct? Like this was
So this was before maps.
right. This was before any of
Before the internet.
There was no Yelp.
No.
Right. It was nothing.
There was no Yahoo. There was no
So
Google.
what year is this?
97.
Okay, wow.
1997. Yeah, literally. I mean, I hadn't even used the internet before.
Wow.
I had worked on equipment and systems, war systems, hunting submarines and big, huge analog systems and digital systems. But like the use of email and the internet, it was just, from our perspective, was just coming online. And so to go and, they're explaining like, well, the yellow pages, like, yeah, well, and commercials on TV and radio and print. I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, we're going to take all that and put it on the internet. And I'm like, that sounds fascinating. I mean, it made sense to me.
Yeah, right.
It's like that people would use this tool. And the way I used to explain it to people because I was, my first job with the internet was going door to door here in Austin and selling the internet to businesses.
Wow.
And they had no clue what I was talking about.
Wow.
There was no wireless internet. There was no smartphones.
Right.
It was all dial-up.
No 5G.
There's yellow pages, those big yellow books that they used to drop off at your front door. And I would go into a business, and it could be, out of territory. So it was like, okay, so in my part of town was like West Central Austin. So it's like, I would go in to call on El Arroyo, and then go to the law firm on the hill behind it, and then go to the car place next to it. And it's like, hey, we want to invite you to come be on the internet. They're like, what are you talking about?
We'd like to invite you to be on the internet.
Yeah, it's like, I said, well, I said, the yellow pages, that's how you find things. He's like, yeah. I said, that box in the living room, we'll call that the TV. That box in your car, we call it the radio. Well, there's this new box that people are going to have on their desk, computers, or carrying around a laptop, and they're going to be able to access things like the yellow pages all on there. So in addition to the advertising that you're doing on the radio and on the TV and in the yellow pages, you need to be here, because in all those other mediums, mostly, well, not except for the yellow pages, and all those other mediums, people can't go look for you, but this is where they can go look for you. So they're specifically looking for a Mexican food restaurant, an auto dealership, an attorney, and they will use the internet to find those things. We literally had to explain it like
Wow.
that. So
That's so cool.
that was my first. That was the first time I
City
ever
search.
sold anything, and sold anything that had not been invented before. And I think that's where I got my entrepreneur bug. I'm like, I'm like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was such a challenge.
Right, well, because you've got to educate as well as sell. And
Yeah.
you're selling something that's sort of untested, there's no obvious value straight up, right? They're going to be paying money for the internet, and it could be years before people actually start showing up.
Right.
So that led you to, you said, your first internet company. So how did that grow? Is that
Well, part of the story here is have a passion for what you're doing, find it and love it. And I just, it's like, hey, do you want to be an engineer and sit in front of computers all day and big boxes and figure things out, and work with equipment and devices and other, or do you want to like do this stuff? I'm like, this is fun, So the idea of it was great, and then going out and building a company I really enjoyed, and then bringing something to market that had never been brought to market before, that was a better way to do something. And I love, and maybe it's because I'm lazy, but I like finding a better way to do something, and so that we already do. So So
Who was it that had that quote about lazy people? Is it
if you want to get something
Bill
done
Gates?
quickly, hire someone who's lazy.
Laziest person in the room.
Maybe that's it. I don't think I'm lazy, but I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like, why are we doing it like that? And that was I was always asking, like, why does? So anyway, was working here in Austin, and the timelines, as you guys know, that startups have, and are not the same timelines that companies used to have in the past.
Right.
So you could get a promotion in 6 months, right? And so literally, it's like, okay, we hired Gregg. There was a team of like 20 like me that were just hitting the street selling City Search, and they're like, hey, those guys are at the top of the sales. They're really good. We need to roll out new markets. Do you want to go on the new market rollout team? I'm like, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So literally, get in a plane, go live in a new market for a couple of months, launch it, get some brochure accounts on. Back then, we would partner with traditional media companies. So, hey, we're partnering with the newspaper in that market or the TV station in that market to give us exposure and legitimize us. And we would help them spin up their own internet properties, which they didn't know how to do. And so it was a joint venture. And so I got to be on the startup team, and I probably did a couple of markets. And then soon after that, because things happen so fast, they're like, hey, we've partnered with this other company called Classified Ventures, and they need to launch their companies, and they're launching these companies called cars.com and apartments.com. And it was all the classifieds that used to be in the newspapers. And do you want to go do that? I'm like, well, tell me more. They're like, well, you'd go live in Chicago, and then you'd help them design the go-to-market strategy, and then all the content around it, and then go out to new markets and start selling that. I'm like, sign me up.
Sounds fun.
So my second one was cars.com. And so, help pre-launch, post-launch that company for almost 2 years. The guys that I worked with and for still run it today. Awesome, Doug and Alex, and did that for several years, and almost 2 years, and then went back to City Search, which at that time then became Ticketmaster City Search. So they had combined the two companies. And so the idea was, hey, if you're going to buy tickets to that ball game, you probably want a place to eat and maybe a place to stay and other things to do. And it was becoming more entertainment focused. So Ticketmaster City Search, and actually part of the union was also Match.com. So I remember.
No way.
Yeah, I went to go run the Houston market, and I remember there was we were trying new things like, well, what if we combine ticketing with entertainment with dating? And we would do,
I get that.
We would do an event where it's like, hey, come to this restaurant, that's a citysearch.com client, get tickets to the Astros game, and it's all going to be singles on Match.com, come find a date type of thing. So it's nutty stuff we were doing back then. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And so that's how I got started. And then there was another internet company, and then another internet company, another internet company.
Yeah. So you found your passion, you found your calling, you found your, it's this new innovation, new things, and telling you stories.
Yeah. It was about bringing the bringing things to market that didn't exist before, that provided a better or new way to do something for humans. So you guys know, it's like humans used to live 40 years or 60 years or whatever. It's like, and then we keep living longer, and that's directly connected to how the innovation that we've created to make things easier. It's like, well, way back when you would have to go down and carry, clay things that you made to go get water and bring it back. And then you'd have to go kill your food, or, and it's like, well, we didn't live very long because that was a lot of energy we were, but now it's like DoorDash and, Amazon. And it's like, we live forever because we're not expending all this energy trying to survive. So anything that was innovation related has always interested me.
Awesome. So the show is all about mentorship. How has mentorship impacted you throughout this varied career? Did you have mentors that kind of opened the door? Obviously, you had experiences, because the experience in the military opened your eyes, but people within that path that said, hey, you do this, do that, or...
Absolutely. When you are, or from my experience, I would always watch who was doing something really well. And if you think about it, the reason that humans are so like successful is because we have the ability to watch and mimic better than any other creature on the planet, right? So we learn things so fast. So, I just watched like who was really good at something, and not just like from a work perspective, but like, it's like, who do you want to emulate?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We were talking about, humans have the capacity to be in relationship with somewhere with 100, 150 people.
Right. Yeah.
And then I watched who had my best interest, like I thought was authentically interested in me, and from a personal level, whether it be a priest. I grew up Catholic, so I had early on, there was a priest at my church that was just he was a World War II pilot, but then a very compassionate, wonderful human being that I had a lot of respect for, Father Fred Underwood. So I would literally have private counsel with him and like, hey, I'm thinking about this, or I'm struggling with this, or what do you think about this? And he such a sweet man who had so much amazing life experience, but he was like one of the first mentors that I remember.
Okay.
And then getting into and then I had mentors in the military, my captain, my division officer, who I was, some of them were really great men, that had been in battle and accomplished a lot in life, were great patriots and good people and parents and good citizens. And so, getting to have time spent with them was great mentorship for me. And then getting into the internet world and, I'm just this mid-20s kid that doesn't really know much. And there are people, it was Bill Gross Idea Labs out of Silicon Valley, and then the team he put together, Charles Kahn, and I could name a bunch of people, but people that they put together to start the internet, for consumer use and commercial use, and having those guys as my mentors, being able to call them about, I'm thinking about this job or this position. What do you think, or how would this affect my life?
And even now, I think last time when we were having breakfast, we were talking about a group of men that gets together. And
yeah, I mean, though some of these guys, I still call on and say, hey, there's a guy, Dan Marriott. He used to be one of the top guys at Interactive Corp. So Ticketmaster, City Search were early on, but eventually became IAC, Interactive Corp, publicly traded as IAC, and they have so many internet properties, businesses in their portfolio, and Dan was on the founding part of that, and so he was somebody that I still call. I'm like, hey Dan, I'm thinking about this investment, or we have this opportunity, or what do you think about this?
Yeah, it seems like the mentorship questions changed from, depending on your life, like, what do I do? And what do I do in this stage? But now the conversation's changed, like, these are some companies, these are some ideas that I want to invest in and do. And so now there's just a different kind of conversation, but still like mentorship.
I think they're triangulated now, because I had mentioned I have a weekly group of gentlemen that I meet with, and they provide great mentorship, but we're able to talk. We talk, what it's like to be human, to be a husband, to be a father, and willing to listen. They're willing to listen. They're willing to give advice when asked for. And so, it's precious to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. I've had to learn that.
Yeah.
Like, there have been plenty of relationships that I should have maintained better.
Right.
That I didn't, because I didn't know to value it so much.
Right.
But if we're talking about mentorship and we're talking about Gen Z, like, one of the most important things, that I have 12-year-old twins, that I would tell them eventually, and anybody that was young, and was like, one of my first strategic moves is find people that that are willing to invest time and energy into you and surround yourself with these types of people. And if they're willing, then respect that and reciprocate and maintain and deepen that relationship.
That's such an interesting point, in that I've had that similar conversation with my 21-year-old around her own friendships, because sometimes, society today is different than it was when we were growing up, as far as that value that you had for that circle of friends that you have. Today, it's more that swipe left, swipe right attitude. And it's like, oh, she made me upset. She pissed me off. We're no longer friends.
Right.
And I'm like, what? I mean, this person that you hung out with for all this whole year.
Right.
And now there's one spat and then you're moving on. In talking to one of our guests that's coming in, who's also a therapist, talks about this change and this shift. And it's kind of this mental, difference that society today has than before, and what comes along with it, issues that come along with it. So I think that's incredibly important. I love that you brought up mentorship in a different light, because typically when we're talking about mentorship, it's like careers. But you mentioned your group of men that it helps with identity, right? And the other thing that you said identity-wise is, when you went into get off the ship, you no longer wanted to go to that thing that career that was already set there for you. You're like, that wasn't me anymore. It's no longer my identity. And so it's really neat to see that mentors can help not only shape the career that you're going to take and what path you should take, but then what kind of person you need to be all the way around.
Well, that's when you were talking, I was thinking about this conversation. I'm like, it's not so much as on the career side. I've had, a lot of different careers, if you count up all the companies and all the things that I've done, like it's still today in my 50s, it's still evolving depending upon my current need and my family and things of that nature. But what the consistency is around the who's, like who would be these mentors, and some mentors are business mentors, and some mentors are family mentors, and some mentors are spiritual mentors. So I was in this business school in California, not like academia so much, but it's called AJI, and AJI, and I was in there for many years. I think like 07 to 19 or something like that, and our main teacher, mentor, the man that started the offer, Toby Hecht, he would talk about how we should be humble and always thirsting for knowledge, for learning, and that it is strategically advantageous to look for mentors in all facets of life. Right. So that I would have a spiritual mentor and a family mentor and a business mentor. And I think it was Dr. Fernando Flores that invented the permanent domains of human concerns. And it's like humans always move around caring about this set of things, from your body to your career to your family, and I don't remember them all, but I think there's 12 or 13 of them, spirituality. And this is what humans care about all the time. And everybody's moving to take care of these concerns. And so if that's true, then it would be smart for me to have mentorship in all those areas of life. Yeah. So it's actually strategic. Like if I would have known this when I was, a young person, then I'd be like, okay, this is how I'll look to shape my life.
I love that. Really great. And it's a nice, fresh perspective on what we've been discussing this first season and a half almost. Let's jump into some questions, huh? So we've gone out and talked to some Gen Z and asked them what's keeping them up at night. And let's chime in. Yeah. All right. So let's see. This first one is Bella. You remember Bella?
I'm also hearing that it sounds like you're recognizing that your generation or people that you're seeing on socials or wherever are disconnected in a way.
Yes.
Like it's the lack of community or...
It's lack of community. It's lack of, oh gosh, what was I just going to say? It's just, I get it though. Like when I was in middle school, I was on social media, but I wasn't on social media how like social media is today.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine like being a little 12-year-old girl and like having to just like figure it out.
So what she said as we were chatting with her is, I mean, do you recall the conversation? Want to chime in?
Yeah, sure. Bella is interested in being in theater and performing. And so she really does value community, but she found that social media was almost diluting relationships and community because people are becoming so used to having that screen in between them. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just going to say, one of the things we talked about afterwards is like a rule of thumb that I'm now living by, and that is if I leave after a gathering with friends, if I leave depleted and feeling like, why did I just spend my time hanging out with those people are no longer in my life. So thinking about your daughter's experience, but if I leave feeling fulfilled and rejuvenated and fed and like we both got something out of it, that's my tribe.
Like
That's so
junk food versus wholesome.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, when I listen to her, and she talks about social media as it relates to a community, it is not, it's not, to me, that's not right. And you and I were talking earlier about how, again, going back to if we have somewhere between 100 to 200 people that we can actually be in relationship with, and we are under the impression that because we see somebody on the screen, those people take up one of our slots of our 100 to 150 people, because our brain can only absorb so many relationships, and we think that's one of them. Right. It's like, that's a problem, right? Especially if that other person isn't giving back because it's a relationship with, somebody famous that's saying something, and so that is an issue, and it's no wonder why she's not fulfilled, and not because there's no ability to give and receive. And I suffer from that too, what you said. I mean, I can get on social media and I'm on it for like 20 minutes and I'm like, I feel spent, and I don't like, that was not a good experience for me. And so even, at my age, I have to like police myself and either be sure of the content that I'm absorbing is healthy, like is feeding me. But also remember that those aren't people that I'm in relationship with if I'm watching a reel. Right. And the authentic relationships I have to go out in the world and get. And when you were talking about the willingness to sever a relationship, to me, like, that's part of what social media has done. Because in the real world, when you were talking about if we have a tribe of X number of people and these are our hunters and these are our taking care of our children, and these are our farmers, and these are making our clothes, and it's still the same thing today. It's just more advanced. You run off out of that community, there's nowhere to go, and you won't make it alone.
Right.
And so you hear about, we talked about earlier, these people feeling loneliness or stressed. Sometimes we're not in real relationships because we're on social media relationships, and our willingness to sever them. I mean, it's no wonder that people are stressed.
So I think a good question that we should probably kind of put our brains around is, because we've bashed social media almost every show, but I think that the opposite question is, how does one at that age build community? Like, what to look for in building community? You've had mentors that you go to build at least your identity, but how would we do it again? How would we build community if we were 21 today?
Sure. I would meet them where they are right now. Like, I have gotten some of my closest friends from Bumble BFF. So it's still a swiping situation, but it's for friends. It's for platonic friendships. So you can utilize social media to get friendships if
real friendships.
Yeah, real friendships, not... like the platform Bumble BFF. The goal is to find friends. Meetup groups are great. I go to yoga, and I've gotten some of my closest friends through yoga. I go to church, and some of my other closest friends are through church. So joining pre-established communities, whatever your religious or communal or hobby interests are,
Right.
and then diving into that and participating,
Right.
literally participating, like join a volunteer group,
Mhm.
and there's so many different ways to participate. Like, for example, my yoga, I help mop the floors afterwards
Mhm.
because that helps me feel like I'm a part of my community and giving back to it. So
Right.
there's so many different ways, but
Nonprofits,
exactly,
giving
volunteering at
machine.
nonprofits. Um, a lot of it will boil back down to giving back because that is a fulfilling thing in and of itself. But it's not to be
And you're
able
meeting
to
like-minded
parade it
people.
all over.
You mean like-minded people.
Right.
If someone is at a nonprofit or any of these specialized groups, you've got a similarity already.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether you're in the same church or whether you're in the, go to the same yoga. You've got the same interest. How about
I've
you?
said it before, but real quick, just saying yes to when people invite you to
That's
things.
key.
Saying yes, it's scary, but I promise you, once you
Yeah.
do it, you'll be like, so glad I did that.
What about you, Mr. Rocket Man? I know it's going to
I
be
just build a rocket and I fly to them. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Yes, and is a great, it's sort of an improv rule.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, and I'm trying to be more yes and about my life. So like you say, someone invites me to something, I don't really know a lot about it. Maybe it doesn't sound very good. Do you know what? Yeah, I'll go. I'll just go and I'll see. Another phrase that I find really helps is, how can I help? Show up to, do your yes and show up to some random thing. You're like, how can I help? Someone's like, oh, nice to have you here. What do you, and you do, and you're like, do you need any help with that? And
That's interesting.
That
That's
gets you a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's an organizer, maybe you brought some of it. Do you need any help with
The
this?
two things that provides is how can I help demonstrates a willingness to find a way to be valuable to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And typically when we're saying, how can I help? That question can often be toward a leader or somebody in a senior position, the yoga instructor,
Mm-hmm.
the whoever's putting the thing on at church, whoever's putting the event on over here. And those are the opportunities to find mentorship.
Right.
Because if you are, if I'm willing to be helpful, like, how can I be valuable to you? People who are valuable to others notice that. And that's where I found that people who are willing to be mentors look for mentees that way.
Yeah.
Like, here's somebody who will put themselves out there, willing to try to be helpful, whether it's sweeping the floors or whatever. And so it's a good way to find mentors. And I think the practice of finding a way to be valuable to other people. So what you spoke about, from my perspective, there's like core things.
Mm-hmm.
The relationships have to happen in the real world, not online, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even if they start online, you go be somewhere together. We're human beings. That's how we coordinate and cooperate and
Mm-hmm.
get is to be together. So you've got that. So fundamentally, I'm going to go out there saying yes, like, yes, I'm going to participate. And then how can I be valuable to our tribe? I
Mm-hmm.
hunt, I do, whatever, I sweep floors, whatever. Those are, for Gen Zs, I would be like, okay, what are all the things that are important to me? Go out in the world and find those things to participate in. Say yes, even though it might be scary, and find ways to be valuable to the group, and seek, and any of those communities will have leaders, right? Whoever
Right.
organizes,
Naturally, yeah.
and then go ask them to be your mentors.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is a fundamental strategy for how to find mentorship.
I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you said about asking for help, as silly as that sounds, that's thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think, like, what is that? The days we live in today where it's everything's you can you can order it on your app. I need this done. I need, like, we live in this country where, like we were talking about earlier, it's like the lotto ticket. Everything is so easy that rarely does anybody have to ask or need help because it's at a touch of a button. But thinking about outside the box and saying, how can I help? That makes the other person think, like, what could I not get on the phone that I could help with? So I really do love that.
That is to me, how can I help is another way of saying, how can I be valuable in a situation? And that to me is the core of having a happy life and having community and relationships. Like literally, when we get a job, we go apply for a
Help
job.
wanted.
We think the mentality is, I know how to do that and I can be valuable over there.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go do that. And we as humans, and especially in innovation and start, like we have to be going, how do I create value? How do I produce value? How do I produce value? How do I produce value? That's the core of what it is to be human, because you don't get a space in that tribe of 150
Mhm.
unless you can't be, well, they hunt and they farm and they raise the kids and they sew the clothes. Or what does he do? Oh, he didn't do anything. He just sits over there.
Right.
Like,
That doesn't
you're
happen.
gonna, but you want to eat and you want to, it's like, you're not going to be able to hang out here long. So the human condition is to try to find a way to be valuable to others so that we can be part or produce opportunities, which again is creating value. I mean, that's at the core of what we do.
And I think it goes back to, again, valuing your friends too. Don't let one argument throw away a whole relationship, because there's, like, if you see the underlying value of helping each other out through good times and bad times, then
and I had to learn that. Like, I've had to learn that the hard way in some cases. Like, I didn't want to have any arguments with anybody, and if I did, then I would be like, well, I'll go find somebody else. I don't want that. And what I've realized is that you're going to have differences, and if they value you and you value them in any situation, at home or at work or at church or wherever, it's like, you're going to have to work things through.
yeah, it is work, communication and relationships, friends and closer. Everybody here's got relationship. It's work. You've got to kind of to see the other side. But feeling that one other thing that social media has done is it really allowed you just to focus on what's on this side of the screen versus that side of the screen. Like, that's just kind of like, and it gives that permission. It does something in your mind that the world is just about you.
Or even behave in a way that you wouldn't in person.
Right.
Like, I'll even acknowledge, like I would say something to somebody online, in a chat on Facebook or something, an opinion about something, especially now we're getting into the political season. So, and it's easy to go, you're crazy, whatever, and disagree. And yet if that person was sitting here and we said, let's go have lunch. Because I've got friends that literally have friends that on a public forum of Facebook, I might argue something, but then if he and I were having lunch,
never say it.
Never. No, we'd be talking about our kids and
Right.
like, so yeah. So it's awful sometimes.
All right, let's jump into this next one. This is Anais. So I think she's summing up a conversation. Anais is our correspondent that talks to a lot of Gen Z, and sometimes I've had her give me a synopsis of the conversation, because sometimes it's hard for them to express.
Sure.
How do you recognize the pressure that you put on yourself in a certain situation from the pressure that you actually have within the situation? Meaning, I'm in a work environment and I put a lot of pressure on myself because I feel that I'm not good enough. So I work hard, but no matter what I do, I always feel that I'm not good enough. And then there's a second situation where maybe you're in a work environment, you're doing a really good job, but you have people around you that are telling you you're not good enough. And so that starts playing with your mind. So the question is, how do you recognize when something is actually coming from you and you are basically torturing yourself to be a better person when actually what you do is enough and you should actually cut yourself some slack? On the other side, there could be a very toxic situation where you're in a place where you're not appreciated, but it's very hard to understand when that has something to do with you. And when that has something to do with the situation and you're never going to do enough because you're not in a good team or not in a good relationship. So have you ever found yourself in that situation, and how did you deal with it?
That's a great question.
It's great. And as I'm listening to her, what it makes me think of is that's actually opposite sides of the same coin from my perspective, because if you're for someone that's hard on themselves, you can only give to others. You guys know this. You can only give to others what you're giving to yourself, right? So if somebody's hard on themselves and doesn't think that they're enough, well, guess how they treat everybody that works for them. You're not enough, and you're not doing good enough, because that's the story you're telling yourself.
Right.
So you just put it out there. So, if I was looking for somebody to work with or for, it's like, do they have a healthy, well-rounded life? Are they treating themselves well? And if somebody's a workaholic, like that used to be a badge of honor. But you were talking about, like, we need balance, we need harmony in our lives early, we need rest. It's like, so if somebody's like, all that they eat and breathe, work all the time, there's no self-care there, right? So they're probably going to expect you to do what they do. And if you're not doing that, then they're probably going to tell you you're not good enough. So on the one hand, one side of the coin is like, we're already all good enough, and we're all doing the best we can, and we're gonna mess up. We're not gonna always have the outcomes we want. As I would tell my kids, stay out of the outcome business. Like, just do the best you can in the moment, and leave the outcomes to God. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and then have grace with yourself. Love yourself. If you can start with that, then anything you work on, you'll probably do a better job at accomplishing, and you'll be a better person to other people. So being hard on ourselves is a real thing. We talked about earlier, because there's so much videos and social media out there. Everybody's comparing themselves to the very best in any domain. I'm comparing myself to Tom Brady and Elon Musk and, whoever, the people who have great fame or whatever. And there's only one of them, right? And I don't need to do what they do in order to be happy and be a good person. So that's a challenge, especially with these young people that are internet natives. That's all they know. So I think they need mentors, where it starts hopefully at home with parents. They go, that's not your measuring stick.
Right.
Like, don't compare who you are and what you do and what you accomplish to these finite number of people.
Yeah. Unrealistic expectations.
Let it start within. Love yourself. Don't put so much pressure. Like, you can have goals and go to accomplish those goals, but not to where it makes you sick and unhappy, right? And then if you can get that perspective for yourself, then you'll have a better eye for who to work with and work for.
I was going to add to what you 100% love that. But going back to how you measure your friendships, or you measure, how did I feel when I'm done with that relationship? We can take that same principle when I'm at work. How do I feel with this environment? How do I feel about this boss? Because, if you feel fulfilled, like a contribution, or cared and nurtured, then maybe that's how I would make that differentiation. Because, all of us that hire employees, we hire all levels, and we know as we're hiring them, we can't expect them to be a pro baller. They start as employees. I mean, you hire interns, and you know that there's limitations with that. And does the employer have a system, if it's not themselves, do they have a system to where it nurtures that intern or entry-level employee to
train them up?
Yeah, to train them up to get better. And so I would ask, if I was in that situation, I'd ask myself, what's the environment like? Because I know I'm green, and I know there's a lot of learning that I can do, and maybe I'm not doing what I can be. I'm not going to be there for another year or two, but what's the environment feel like for me? If it's positive, if it's negative, and if it's toxic, as she said, I definitely run. But then having grace with yourself, but make sure it's great. Make sure it's grace with. It's not lazy. It's not like I don't want to. Like I'm new. I shouldn't do anything. So I want to give everything I have, and still have grace that knowing I'm learning, and this is a path.
Yeah, and the one of the good things I think has come out of all of what we're learning today. You see there's an acknowledgement of mental health and how it's important. And so you see individuals and then companies start to pay attention to the health and wellness of their ecosystems, their businesses, their staff. And so I think that's a really good thing. And then I've seen businesses who are really paying attention to their employees and investing in their evolution, how they grow in their development within their career, within their job. And it doesn't mean that you're going to work there forever.
Right.
And it may not be your forever job, but even if a company is willing to invest in you while you're there, that's a healthy thing. And I think it makes the employee more likely to invest and be loyal to the company for the time frame that you're there.
Right.
Like the forever jobs are gone.
Right.
Because that plan doesn't work today when we live to be 90 or whatever. But you can be loyal while you're there and have companies that will reinvest in you. I think things are. My brother-in-law is in people analytics at Atlassian. And when he got there, I think there was 1,000 people, and now I think he said there was 10,000.
Wow.
And he spends all of his time helping the company understand their employees, their business and organizational structure, and how to improve the lives of their employees, so that they are optimized personally, like satisfied, but then also optimized to serve the company, which is the reciprocity that we all
So
need.
smart.
Yeah. And I think companies or some companies are starting to do a much better job of that.
I just want to say two quick things. One, earlier today, I asked somebody I respect very much to please give me true feedback, like even if it's going to hurt my feelings, because I wanted to know. I said, I want to be excellent, and that won't come without constructive criticism. And also, I heard intrusive thoughts and negative self-talk in that clip. And so one thing people can do is called thought stopping. So, God, I'm not even good at this. Why am I doing this? You literally say stop and reframe whatever your brain is trying to do to you.
Makes sense. Let's get one more in. So this is Landon.
Tell us what worries you about school.
School is one of my big stressors because high school was a little difficult once it hit like junior and senior year, because it's like that's when you need to start finalizing stuff for like college, and that's when like everyone's on your back about college and your future and what's to come next. And it's really just like you're just fighting to get through the year so you can graduate, and they're all like, what do you want to do for college?
Right.
College. And I'm just
What do you want to do forever? And
Yeah.
you're like,
I'm like, that's a big decision.
yeah.
We were talking about this before the show.
Brutal.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show. There is, you've got twin 12-year-olds, I've got a 21-year-old, and as parents, to see the kind of pressure that your kids go through, because you're not with them in school, and sometimes the pressure comes from all over, this peer pressure, and I know that I've, just because of how I believe, I've never put that pressure on her. I figured just give her time, she'll figure this out. Especially 13 through 20, through now, it's just kind of been like, I know it's gonna happen. But I'd see her come home sometimes almost in tears, just not trying, just like so stressed out about what college she was going to go to, because everybody's telling her to do different things, and she just had this stress.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason that we're working so hard at Founding Up, is to people have, take a breath. You're not going to know what you're going to be right now. It'll take years, and it's this evolving thing. So when I see this, it just kind of takes me back to that as a parent.
I'm smiling because I remember when I was in the military and I was on the ship, and I think we were in port, and I was going to the dentist. So you have a military dentist. So this guy, I think he was a lieutenant, and he was a dentist. So and I was talking to him. We were talking about what I was going to do, and I said, well, what about you? Or how did you decide that you were going to be a dentist? And I just remember him saying to me, he's like, I don't even want to know. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm going to grow up. And this guy's in his 30s or 40s, and he's a dentist. So he spent a lot of time and money and effort to learn, that field. And he was still like, I don't know. I still don't know. I have so many thoughts about that, because I've got the twin 12-year-olds, and I can see they've already got pressure. They're feeling their own pressure I'm sure I pressure them in some ways that I'm not even aware of, and their mom too, unintentionally. And there's like, we don't, I don't know. I mean, like I struggle with, this is why me having mentors as other fathers is it's so important, because you want your kids to be successful. And meaning have a happy life and have a home and food on the table and a community and health and so we want that for them. And so there is some degree of like, you know, making sure that they're on the path to produce that in this country that we live in, that's required of us. At the same time, you don't want to ruin their childhood.
Right.
Like how much pressure is too much pressure, so I'm trying to find the balance as a parent, right? And then for myself, and reaching out to like other dads and things I've learned on my own, and like on how to do that with them, but then also helping them understand, like we were talking about, being present,
right?
Like I had, like, you're okay right now, and you're enough, and you're gonna be fine. You're fine now, and you're gonna be fine, and you're enough, and just keep doing the things you're doing, and surround yourself with good people, and we love you, and you're safe, and you don't have to figure it all out. It's funny. It's like the further we get away as a species from survival, the higher the expectation and the more pressure we put on ourselves. Yeah. I mean, there was a moment where getting the next meal, but
I would almost argue that's easier, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to eat.
You're right. No,
is my stomach full? I'm successful.
That's my point. It was
I'm
easy.
winning.
It was, they didn't have, I mean, there was stress and like, I got to have the next meal. But to your point, they weren't thinking about 4 years. Like my 12-year-old's already thinking about high school and college. And I'm like, you didn't think about that back then. It's like, I need to eat today.
Right.
Right.
If you're like, Leon, you're a screw up. And I'm like, no, I'm not. My stomach is full.
There you go.
I'm great. This is a success, right? Yes. Whereas today, like, I've talked about this a little bit. It's like, especially as you sort of, as increasingly our jobs disconnect from our communities, right? You have these hyper specialized things, and there's something or other, marketing, whatever, and a so-and-so specialist. And it can be hard to see how your job contributes to your tribe, right? To your community. And then in doing so, it's hard to see how you're valuable to that community, which I think is just a very natural human thing. We do want to help each other and we want to contribute to that society. Right. And so now you've got Gen Z. They're in a workforce that's rapidly changing. We're not really sure what to do with all the people we already have in that workplace, let alone all the new ones that are coming in.
Or even in school. I was listening to something this morning that said only 59% of the people that go to college graduate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to push all these people into this system that it's not working for 40% of them. Right. And that yet they're trying to figure out what to do. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, so you have this problem now where like success becomes really sort of metaphysical, right? It's like, okay, what is self-actualization, top of that needs pyramid? What does it mean to be a successful person? What are you going to do? How are you going to, and you're like, I don't know, man. Like when I was 17, I could barely be trusted to make cereal. And even then it was 50-50, right? Like, did I wake up on time? Maybe. Yeah. Like, and then, but also like, and it's just it's a ridiculous question, I think. Right. And we need to take a step back and just say, it kind of doesn't matter what you do. One, that you're planning for a future that probably doesn't exist. Like, think about you, right? That like you had planned this thing, you went to the military, you were going to come back to Motorola, and you ended up working in an internet company. Like you ended up, a lot of your career was in a technology that did not exist when you were at school. It would have been impossible to plan for your future because it did not exist. Right. When you were being asked to plan. The pace of technology and the pace of change are only getting faster. And you're just at a point where the real truth of what it means is that you can never know what your future will be and what the world will become and the ways in which you can become successful. So worrying about that is almost self-defeating, right? Like I have a rule where I try to have a 5-year plan and I don't bother planning further than 5 years ahead because the whole point is in 5 years, I hope to have been such a different person that plan may not matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think what you said earlier about balance makes sense, because I think there is the competitiveness of parents, and I'm just going to throw it on us as parents, because we're part of the pressure. Like it's,
Yeah,
at the end of the
absolutely.
day, there was someone that we were sitting down with talking about the pressure that was put on him, and it was the school counselor. That, well, the you've got to just worry about the sweater problem. It's like, what's the sweater problem? It's like, what color sweater, what kind of sweater you're gonna be wearing on that golf course when you're talking about your kids and what school they go to. I'm like, what does that have to do? Like that kind of like pressure, um, it sends, it obviously sends us down the wrong path, right?
Yeah.
So now it's more about what we just talked about, having balance. And while I don't believe in saying, go to school, go figure it out, I do believe in saying, do something. Like just, take a class, go figure out, you find a hobby, like explore, like what, because as you were pointing out earlier, like finding your passion, it takes time.
Yeah.
And you've got to go try things to do that.
Well, you got to go find it.
Right.
If I sent you on a treasure hunt, you understand you have to go for a walk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that most of that wandering around probably isn't that productive. And finding your passion is or people don't stumble upon passion. I think passion is something you have to make. You have to, and you do that through persistence. People who are passionate about all kinds of things, it's not that someone just woke up one day and was like, that's it, I'm going to be passionate about teeth.
Yeah.
Right.
But do you think I think it's as much like exploration, like
right.
Like how could you know? Like
Trusting
you
your
have to be
gut.
exposed to something to go, oh, I love that. Like my son had never played football before, and he didn't want to. And then one day he's like, Dad, I think I'm ready. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I said, listen, it's going to be hot. It's 100 degrees. You're going to be in full pads, and then somebody's going to knock you on your butt. And I said,
awesome.
I said, somewhere in there, you're going to decide if you enjoy this or not. There's only one way to figure out. You got to go experience it. And I said, I think us as parents, we have to say, and either way, and this is what I told him, I love you, and it's fine. Like if you go, Dad, it's not for me. I'm like, that's cool. Hey, Dad, I love this. I'm like, that's fine. We'll support you either way. And he went out there and got knocked on his butt and ran around for a month in 100 degrees. And he's like, Dad, I love this. I mean, I love it. I just love it. I'm like, okay. And the only way to your point, the only way to figure out what we could be passionate about is we got to get out in the world and learn, and then have a 5-year plan maybe to actualize that passion and find a way to feel fulfilled and produce value with it. But yeah, and then taking it all the way back to what we were talking about earlier. At the end of the day, we can't all be rocket scientists. There's only a small. How many of you are there in the world? Not many.
Not an enormous number. There's only a need for so many rockets.
Right. But so what does a fulfilled life look like? And where I wanted to change the world, like, there was a moment where I wanted to be Elon Musk or Bill Gates or whatever. And now what's important to me is being a great dad,
right,
and being a good human, and being a good citizen, and helping wherever I can. And I accept the fact that there is a ripple happening,
right,
and I may never see the butterfly effect of what contributions I make. That could be to one person or 1,000 people or generationally, but I don't need to be famous. I don't need to, do like the startup things. Are like, hey, we're going to do this, and now it's come all the way back to, do I provide a safe environment physically, emotionally, spiritually for my children? And am I a good husband, brother, citizen, friend, mentor, mentee? It's important to me as be a good learner as I am a teacher, and that's what's important today. That's where, and if kids can, I think if Gen Z can figure out, like, do it right here, like just love yourself, focus on being the best person you can be. You don't have to change the world. If you're a good mom, if you're a good friend, if you're a good Austinite, American, whatever your group is, yoga, practitioner, whatever.
We were talking to a guy and said how he changes the world. He just smiles. Like,
Yes.
it's just as easy as a smile, because that's contagious. I'm like, hadn't thought about it that way, but it is a butterfly effect. But anyway, with that, I think our time is up. Thanks for being on
Absolutely.
the show.
Thank
Really,
you, Greg.
really
These
enjoyed it.
I love great, meaningful conversations. So
Likewise.
it's always good. Absolutely.
What an amazing conversation today. Gregg Alvarez shared so much valuable insight on mentorship, navigating the startup world, and even how to strike the right life balance. His journey from working in internet startups to angel investing reminds us all that success comes with both persistence and adaptability. If you're on your own entrepreneurial journey, or even just looking to make meaningful connections, today's episode offered some great advice on finding value in every stage of life. Thanks again for joining us here on Founding Up's Uncharted Your Sidekick for Life. And remember, whether you're building the next big thing or simply figuring out your next step, we're here to explore it with you. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. If you would like to participate as a Gen Z guest or mentor, visit our site at foundingup.com or check out the show notes. And as always, keep pushing forward, stay curious, and don't be afraid to explore the uncharted.